So what should be done? Right now they are training AI models from my brain. It's likely that they are training models from others' brain, from other people's brains. For how long they had been doing this? I started to have some symptoms full on in 2017. I met some people that start to experience symptoms in 2004. So maybe the matrix has been there for a while, a possibility. It means that the social contract can be questioned, at least in my case. There is also the situation that what can be done? Well, you have crypto. With crypto, you can create transactions that can be managed by AI, in which humans doesn't need to have any interference. And this could work for basic things. Like, let's say, because we have electromagnetic fields everywhere, these electromagnetic fields can be just catch in receptors, and we can decode as a map our whole environment. If a crime happens, then they can say that the crimes happened, especially major crimes. Yeah. That way, and trusted only by cryptology, having, let's say, only certain AIs the keys, is possible to have privacy, whilst everything can be known, in the sense that everything can be decoded in the environment. This is almost as this anime, the Japanese anime that is called Psycho-Pass, because it makes sense. I have heard a few Japanese social scientists, and usually are like social scientists that United States loves, like this person who wrote about the end of time, something like that, saying that simply United States just gonna be forever. I mean, capitalism just gonna be forever the system, and United States gonna be also the most powerful country, and all countries gonna be democracies, etc. And that was, Japanese guy. Right now they just hit me with a really strong signal. I smiled some, but I'm kind of used to. Also, because I'm taking antipsychotics, I cannot have the triggers that will cause madness in most of the people. Yeah, but this might be frightening in another setting, and most of the people doesn't have emotional intelligence. I start to learn emotional intelligence maybe in 2015 when I start to read Erich Fromm. Yeah, it's a very important person for achieve consciousness. And when I was reading him, I started to experience the first symptoms. He actually made a lot of kind of predictions of what's going on to me today. One of the situations is that, okay, I don't know many social scientists from Japan. I heard some news that probably 5 years ago, Japan reduced the budget for their universities related with social sciences. Most of the universities in the world are not developing critical thinkers in this sense for some reason, and it has happened always in history just before war. And it's not saying that there's gonna be a war. Could be even worse. Yeah. But Japan also has another kind of science that is done in another kind of science that is done through art. So you find magnificent pieces of art like anime, and it's a whole culture, you know. Japanese have their own culture and their own way to produce knowledge. And I do believe they must be proud of that. But okay, the situation is that if this is real, if this is happening to me, then how do we fix this? I understand that some people in power wants to keep power. I never met anyone in a secret society, so I'm not really sure if that exists. But let's say in Melbourne you could see buildings of the Masons and so on. So, okay, they might exist. But in the other hand, okay, what's the point of all of that? Most of the guidance that these societies have are from the Bible. And we were given free will. The Bible is full of contradictions, but also can be taken as a book of governance. And I do believe the idiocy starts when repeating things from the past, or maybe you don't know what to do, and then you just open a random page to solve whatever problem you have, and you take a decision for a whole group. And that's a problem. We need to change our philosophy towards technology. We're gonna become overproductive, and the thing with which humans will struggle the most is with meaning, because we wouldn't be able to find meaning. And it's very interesting that always in developed countries they have the highest, let's say, rate of suicides. Yeah, I don't feel suicidal. I'm not suicidal. It's never it's never something that I will wish, but it also feels that the technology can be so powerful that they could push you to the limit at the point in which you prefer to not be alive, because maybe the sensational overcharge of all your nerves, body, etc., using these weapons can take you to this extreme. And I know that some people will be happy if I die. It will solve some problems, but the problem precisely starts because no one is speaking about this. The academics are too afraid. The policy go too slow. Every single day there is a new model of AI capable to do things that, I mean, millions of things that couldn't be done before. And these new models just appear every single week. And the laws doesn't change. And I notice as well that as soon as these models comes out, the voices start to change. They apply new methods. But there are not many philosophers working on this because they could have asked for consent and secrecy, even if they want, or they could have asked for social major consent, or they could have adapt the society to live in a new matrix. But that's precisely the Babel's Tower history. It's about someone trying to get too close to Dios, to God, or trying to be God, and failing in that. You're gonna build a building, you cannot put too much weight up there because your base needs to be strong. That's basic. And what happens right now, of what I see, is that this technology is overwhelming at the stage that only a few who are in this business and who are related with corporations and a lot of money are capable of have such power. Maybe if they control the toys, they control the politicians. I mean, look what is happening with me. I'm studying a Master's of National Security Policy, and every time I try to write something, I try to write certain things, then I start to be punished severely. It's very painful. You cannot believe it. And you will be mad because it's frightening. It makes you think that you are crazy if you don't understand the technology. You don't understand this kind of massive disruption weapons. But if I'm someone studying a national security master's, and what I write also is reading my teachers, I have to, let's say, listen to them and maybe try to solve things, because that's the point of academy, to create more knowledge. Then I will try to contribute to what they have done, and I will try to contribute what the knowledge that they gave to me. But if I'm not able to write certain things, or I'm disrupted every single time, if it takes me 3, 4, 5 hours just to write 500 words when I don't have to do any citation, then someone is already interfering with the policy, the national security policy of Australia. And that's a national security concern. Someone is driving already something. And it's not because they don't want me to bring some kind of information there that simply doesn't match whatever is there. It's not because maybe they don't want some critical thinking happening there. No, because I was target when I used to work in construction. I used to be just a labor. Okay? I was target long time ago. It has been 8 years already. I started to take wrong decisions when I was target. This thing changed your mood, changed a lot of things. You don't behave in the same way when you see the people. You don't become as happy to see them. You become really plain. It's very annoying because you cannot thrive with other humans. And thriving with other humans is one of the purposes of life, because we humans are born and we cannot live without other humans. We are born and we have to stay with our parents probably up to, yeah, we have to learn to live by ourselves, and maybe that's done. We believe that that's done when we have 18 years. But no, it means that we are social. It means that we are social people. It means that we are social creatures. It says by nature that we are very intelligent, but also in our first days of life, we are very uh, weak, and we are very exposed to dangers. And we have to live with the community, our family, or whoever rises, whoever is helping us to grow, because otherwise it's impossible for humans to just be born, be a baby, and live in nature. So let's assume, okay, this is happening in our countries and they are afraid because they might develop a superior weapon or whatever. The other country will be as afraid as any other country. Did this happen? I mean, what I'm telling you is that, yeah, people just seem to be weird after COVID, and I mean, people doesn't speak about that. They're just accepting what is happening, but they don't know anything about neuroscience, these kind of weapons, etc. But one way in which this can be solved is just talking to the other partners and creating the basis for a new matrix. If a war starts, it's gonna be hell as never before. Every single war has become not the First World War, Second World War. Now, the wars come every single time bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's the pattern. It's not about Second, Third World War, etc. And check this out. If someone target me, have any intelligence on who I am, if someone thought it would have been a good idea, I tell you, whoever is managing these weapons is very paranoid. I tell you, whoever is managing these weapons is doing it wrong. I tell you, whoever is managing these weapons doesn't do it from the security point of view. It's more from the insecurity point of view. This person must be very insecure to take these kind of decisions. These people around him might not be giving him advice properly, especially at the time this started to happen to me, and whoever support that under which grounds. And there were many countries that, I mean, if I was targeting 2016, 2015, maybe before, as I say, I know someone who started to have these kind of symptoms and described exactly what happened to me in 2004. So I don't know when the symptoms started. Maybe I wasn't conscious of what was going on to me. But I will notice certain times in which, yeah, I never cry, and then I start to cry crazy. I don't get anger, and then I get angry. And it's strange, like few moments that I can count. And I could have just continued working in construction, maybe start a business, reading my shit. I've never had a trouble with. In any case, well, in a democracy, I think you are able to voice your political views as long as they don't cause any trouble, as long as they are based on the truth, etc. And I ever did that. I was always someone who could change his mind easily, because I do believe that cannot change your mind, you cannot learn, and changing your mind is a bliss after you have been presented with truths that contradict whatever you think that is reality. And someone who doesn't mind to voice that was wrong or anything like that. So I can define myself as someone who has some kind of integrity and security, some kind, let's say, of values, and not boosting myself as if I were Jesus Christ, but I know that many people has not been able to achieve many of the things that I achieved being, not having. Yeah, a lot of people might have a lot of money and so on, but we might not have achieved what I have achieved as a person who will be naked, not having anything. What is left is only myself. That includes also the emotional intelligence. So I know that for a neuroscientist, this wouldn't be weird what I'm talking about. From someone who has been working in the field of AI from, let's say, 10 years ago, this wouldn't be foreignness this wouldn't look weird. Okay, this person might be diagnosed with schizophrenia, but everything that he's talking about is possible technically. If something is engineered in a certain way, what I'm talking is possible. For a person who doesn't know neuroscience, AI, electromagnetic waves, etc., I don't know, decodification of signals, then the person will think that I'm just a schizophrenic with a low pace of voice. Fine. But there are certain things as well that doesn't make sense. Will make sense for many people. Let's say what makes us human are certain feelings. And if our feelings are kind of fake, if we live in the matrix, then it might be because the distance between the base and the top is every time higher and higher and higher. And maybe the persons who are at the top of the pyramid cannot relate with the people at the bottom, because they don't see themselves reflected in the people at the bottom. And maybe we cannot see reflects with the people at the top. Yeah, we cannot think how it's to live like them. We think that they live free of stress, or we think that, we cannot make any judgment, just as they cannot make any judgment from the people in the bottom, because one of the features of human nature, and I'm not defining human nature, this is something that Anna Arendt, a philosopher, she says that one of the features of human nature is possibility, is to do anything. So as soon as you are born, one of your rights or features is that it could be anything you will become or want to become. It's just that feature of possibility. And what I see is that possibility is reducing for humans. So we're killing human nature. Erich Fromm say, we are making robots that look like humans and humans that look like robots. There are feelings like hope. Sometimes people can go to war hoping something better for the future. This is people with hope. But hope is always expecting something better that grows, that transcends. Yeah? And hope can be used for other things that can be damaging. And this is a kind of false consciousness. This is a kind of Marxist term. The false consciousness appears because it is fabricated. It is false consciousness appears because there are not just illusions, because there are certain illusions that are necessary. Yeah. Let's say, why do I need to know how? I mean, sometimes politicians will do a secret deal that will make the people of each country better. No one will know, and they might do it for the right reasons, and they might say on the news or in an interview that they did another deal unrelated with the other counterpart. Why would I need to know the secret that they did if it's contributing to society? So we need kind of illusions, but these illusions can be up to a point. When you start to create the illusion of the illusion, of the illusion, you have a problem. And it's because your Babel's tower is just too high. And maybe people below really thinks that they will reach God status. Maybe they will think that the future will be better. But maybe they have been cherished. They might have been prompted as being happy as an ideology and hope for the future. Yeah. And it's just very interesting that things aren't going right. Eh? And sometimes we see billionaires telling us, like, if you are, let's say, negative, they will say, why are you being negative? That's a sin. You cannot be negative. Being negative is a bad thing to do. If you are negative, you are not contributing to progress. If you are negative, you are not putting any. If you are, you are, let's say, well, that's one of the things that the technology does, mess up with your boards. If you are negative, you are not contributing anything good to the table. Instead, you have to be positive in every single scenario. Otherwise, you are not welcome. This is an ideology. Happiness as an ideology. Positivism of not counting, but positivism as just being positive the whole time as an ideology. So another situation is that, okay, this is very interesting. I'll try to make it as quick as possible. So in the old days, everything that is rare from the earth will have value. One of the rarest things that people could find in the ancient times were metals. And the metals were useful because at any time you can melt and shape a metal in any form. So you will not waste metal just because you melt it and make it another thing. Those metals then were used for trade because inherently the value is always there. And they became a kind of currency. Because it is a kind of currency and it's heavy, you cannot take the metal everywhere. So they start to create chunks of metal that later became coins. And these chunks of metal, sometimes even if you have a lot of them, you cannot go with a coffin full of gold coins. So you have to leave them somewhere. The person who will keep those coins will be the person who became the bank, because the person will say, I keep your coins of gold and I give you this bill. This bill is a kind of bond or whatever. It will be like a note that will say you own this amount of money, or maybe several notes. And then you start to produce money as notes and coins of lesser value. And since the person who were keeping and taking care of this value gold stuff, and they give the notes to another person so they can trade somewhere else using that. Because if I have if I'm in charge of guarding this treasure, then the person who gave me this can use those notes to trade, and once the trades are done, their partners can come back to me and exchange those notes for the gold that he has given away using the note. And the person who will say, okay, I'm gonna charge you this amount just to keep your gold here. Those are the interest. And then the person will say, okay, just allow me to lend your money and I will have more interest. Yeah. But if you think those coins usually were coming from the colonization, the exploitation era, and they became a system of economic exchange. So let's say most of the gold, silver that came from South America, Africa, etc., all those goods create this system. Yeah, because the reason people could not transport that much gold is because you have companies like the Indian or Dutch company in which they will have so much metal that they could never have a ship that will carry all the metal that they will need for trading in the Indias or trading in America, etc. So the ships will sink and it's too heavy. You need the space for something else. So they kept that gold in Europe. And that's why those are the main reserves, and that's why that Europe was for a long time the center of the economy. After Second World War, Europe's economy got totally destroyed. And the country that economically benefit was United States, because they provide the security soldiers, they provide lives, they provide also the guns, the tanks, industrial stuff, food, yeah. They provide chips, etc. So Europe had a debt with the United States, and then the United States became the bank of the world. So every single person has to ask to the United States for money. And that's why the dollar became the currency by default of international trade. And that's why the dollar is the most valued currency in the world. And this kind of economy has a feature, is that the GDP grows, and you have to measure the growth of the GDP. And the way to measure that is by production and consumption, and it's supposed to grow and just grow and just grow. So it is supposed that the bank lends money, people use that money to produce something that will be buy with the money that will be lent, but by the next batch of the bank's lends. So it means that I will produce something, I own to the bank, and people buy my product because they got money borrowed from the bank just afterwards. So in that way, more money is released, more money is released. Let's say right now, they just speak a little bit my heart. Never happens, but sometimes they just do it. Sometimes they kind of create a privilege, but it's not my heart, you know, it's just superficial. It's this part of the, I mean, it's the muscle. It's not my heart. It doesn't feel in my heart. It feels like right in the muscle. But it's a way to scare you. And sometimes it feels like my eye. I can feel the nerve, and I can feel the nerve going up to here. But okay, so you have this situation in which, well, capitalist system, well, just to give you a treat, whoever is doing that, I drop you a cookie. Okay, so capitalism is the country in which you have the more creation of products and the more creation of invents that have helped society. Yeah, we got a lot of different kind of products that allowed also the people just to create anything, sell it, and fill the gaps of needs, and that is about anything from education to health and whatever. Okay, but now we go to the real thing, the truth. The truth is that United States became the center of the economy, and every single country has to rely on the United States economy. Then the reserves, the banks' reserves, and whoever controls that, the national banks, usually has to be independent. That's part of a controlling system. But it is not. The problem is that ideally you will be productive enough to just exchange your goods with someone else who doesn't produce those goods and need them. But to be productive enough when you have a huge currency disadvantage means that people has no choice but to work in whatever is there, because it doesn't matter how productive they are, how much they work, they would not get, let's say, for say in another way, just they couldn't make their currency as valuable as the dollar. Yeah. Then you have the disparity in which, let's say, Australia has a lot of iron. Maybe there is another place that doesn't have a lot of iron. Let's say UK. Let's say there is a little bit of iron, and because it's so cheap to produce in Australia, then the deal sometimes is done for a little bit of money. Or sometimes it could happen that sometimes things can be expensive to produce, and then it will be the difference that what you earn after you sell it is nothing. And sometimes you can have a fair kind of deal, but it is believed that you do it with consent. And the base of the rationality is consent. So if I'm making this video, it's not because I'm consent to do this video. It's actually because I was not able to write a book. I was not able to make a proper kind of video podcast in which I will show you more images. I will take care making the script and craft that properly. Yeah, it's not because I consent. It means I find another way to do this. Yeah, and the only way in which I could express myself in the easiest way, even having pain right now and experiences these things that might scare others who doesn't understand this technology. The only way in which I could do that is just in the easiest way, just by talking, because I cannot express this in another way. If I write a book, I'm not allowed. This is what technically happens to all the people that complains about gun stalking and that complains about Havana syndrome, and it's all these things together that is happening to me. I just noticed recently that they have a fear tuning in the magnetic field that you start to kind of have the sensation of, and the pain has become more sharper. So they are every day refining this technology. And it's not even about manufacturing consent. There is no consent anymore. Sam Altman, what is his name? Sam Altman say today that if copyrights are given, we're gonna lose the AI race. Maybe copyrights doesn't have to be given, yeah? Maybe moral rights should be given. Maybe some reward should be given. Let's say a plain reward for all the people whose data has been extracted from the whole brain. Yesterday night I went through a dream and they put me in a special scenario, a game in which I'm supposed to fail. And they put you in a scenarios in which, well, you're supposed to talk with people, you're supposed to be close to a family, you're supposed to be around with kids, you're supposed to be taking a gun and fight, you're supposed to be scared, you're supposed to be like in a room that you cannot escape. And that's one of the weirdest things. But people doesn't understand that an AI works equally to a brain. It's the system in which the doors open and close are not the same in binary as in biological neurons, but these can be decoded because technically it's as easy as just put them through a matrix, mathematical matrix, in which you convert from binary to whatever person's neurons or biological thing is. Another way to have it is just by trial and error and just training the AI, but the imagery of a brain must be one place in your brain. And if you can stimulate that, because you're just saying it's a signal that especially stimulates something, or simply you extract the data that is there and you decode it or encode it using AI, then you can process not just the image through AI, but what the image is. So you will have more than one AI process going on there. One that will be the image that you want to produce, let's say the 3D world or whatever. The other one, the codification of the signal, and the other one that will decode the neurons. So you have several technologies working there. Yeah. And being a whistleblower, I don't think so, because this is my experience, and this is how I have been experiencing my reality the last 8 years. 8 years kind of a slave. Why? Man, someone thought that my brain was special. They could have asked me for consent. And what I feel is that they just push me maybe to nudge people in the future, maybe in ways that they're gonna be socially contained or something like that. Because this is a trend in the institutions. Let's say in the old days, you will keep a prisoner in a dungeon at the bottom of a castle. Then you will have the prisoner not in the dungeon, but maybe in in a room with one window. In the next 15 years later, you will have a kind of jail in which people can leave their cell and maybe go to eat food and come back. Later, they will have the bathroom in the cell, a TV, etc. Later, they will be able to go in big spaces and talk with another mates and etc. It follows a pattern in which you left the people outside freely, freely, freely. And as people notices, the jail and the sanatorium or the jail and the mental health institution used to be the same. People didn't know what to do with people who were kind of mad, or let's say people with mental disorders and disabilities. Yeah. And let's say they talk about women who were left on the street, they will be always abused and they will have mental disabilities, or they were crazy. They didn't know what to do with these people in the old days. So they used to send them in ships because it will be free labor for them, and they will, I mean, some people will be, let's say, have the abilities for have enough communication for doing a task in a ship. So they will send them in a ship, use them, and leave them in another country. They will leave them at the crazy people in another country. And then you have these stories of a crazy person like Gandalf speaking a language that no one understands, and blah blah blah. Yeah, that's one way to see it. The other way to see it is when you see artists depicting crazy people in a boat or in a ship. So this is the idea that the crazy people used to go in a ship. But then St. Vincent, whose brother had a kind of disability, probably psychosis or schizophrenia, he was totally disabled. St. Vincent, I don't know the name, but I suppose he was called Vincent. That's why also the hospital is called St. Vincent. His brother had this kind of disability, and then he created an institution where he could go. And you will have there people who had or has lepra, people who will have mental disabilities, and also people who will be punished because they need to be restrained. Yeah. So you will have the same of panopticon, or the same system in which the people that will be institutionalized will be always watched. Yeah. And as the jails have evolved from a system of surveillance. That system of surveillance just went out because that's depicted by many academics. Yeah, it's called surveillance capitalism, and surveillance capitalism is, yeah, your information belongs to the company. You have also this situation in which, yeah, to secure anything from the inside of the most secure place, technologies start to spread out. And you will have a situation in which I feel that I'm totally surveyed the whole time. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes this is crazy, but technology will advance to a point in which the electricity of your eye will be recorded and decoded to know what you're looking at. But this is how it feels. And well, coming back to the old times, so you will have these institutions in which again the hospital follows a pattern. The hospital will take someone who is ill and restrain that person so that person wouldn't cause any trouble. The person will be fed, and at the beginning the conditions weren't that good, and it continues the pattern in which the person then will move, or well, they will put this kind of shirts in which they cannot move the arms, and they will be tied to a bed, etc. But slowly, yeah, another methods start to appear, like for example, uh, people not being tied, but maybe instead of leave them in a small space, just allow them to be in a big space, or just create sections for people who is more violent than others, etc. So if you follow this pattern of the mental health institution, you find as well that people is in the hospital in the most critical condition, and at least in Australia, Canada, and I think Ireland, and probably one other country in Europe, not many countries at the moment. Well, last time I read a book. Also, this is not something that happened in the United States, apparently, with the book that I read about it, but uh, when you go to the hospital, you stay during the critical time, and then you go to a place in which you still treat, but you are allowed to go out in the community, and then you come back to take your medication, sleep there, and you practically live there, but you are allowed to visit your friends and go for a coffee, etc. So the next step might be using technology to regulate your mental health, your mental waves of the brain, and in that way, people who had huge fluctuations then might be solved and will never maybe need to go to a hospital or go to a hospital for a short period of time. Uh, in the jails, yeah, we didn't reach that point, but maybe people will be surveyed whilst they are in the street. It means like they will also, yeah, they wouldn't need this kind of bracelet that is put in their legs. They will use another stuff. So I understand that there is a possibility that they thought I was a criminal, etc. But I don't know how they could have think that. So I think that's why even knowing because the only way in which I could express this, and I say that this is a means of domination, injustice, or this is, I mean, yeah, the only way in which I can express this and talk about this is in terms of power and in terms of, yeah, technically protest, because otherwise it cannot be. Otherwise, it wouldn't have any kind of sense. And I'm no whistleblowing because I never done any oath. I never worked for any government or anything like that. I also know that maybe they will continue torturing me, and then I'm supposed to die, and then they will make some news about it, and they might change the laws. I know that they might allow me to do this and then pressure on our country. I know that it's possible that they will allow me to do this up to a point and then make a movie in the future. And oh, in the old days used to be like this. We have these records from this guy who used to make a video every day. And people could watch these videos. My data will be someone and some company will sell you myself speaking, trying to recreate my brain, you know, and maybe you can buy my personality or something like that, yeah, in the future, and they know that right now, yeah, and they know that I know, and this has been published in 2025, and it's likely because systematically this has become a rule in which it's not necessarily about consent, but it's about exploitation. It might be because I'm an immigrant in Australia. It might be because I have an accent when I speak. It might be because they thought I was stupid. It might be because I did a crime. Definitely it was not the crime, because I have not done any crime. Maybe because when I was young, I have a few friends in the Youth Communist Party. Well, today you can go and visit the Communist Party, which in the middle of the city, that they have their own bookshop, the library, whatever. I never been there, but I've been invited there. But since these strange things start to happen, I actually have rejected to go to those places, to not be related with something that could confuse someone making a policy decision or someone who will think that I'm a spy. But no, it's not how the things evolve. Actually, I could have taken advantage of privileged information in many situations. But I never did that because I knew that why I would need to do that. I just have seen realities. It just came revealed to me, and feels that I'm a catalyzer for it feels that I'm battling one of the biggest armies or whatever. That's how it feels. And I cannot talk about any other reality. So my life started to be destroyed slowly. Maybe because I was a refugee. I am a refugee. And is this the Australian army? You know, that is spying up. That thing manages satellites. That's the only thing that I know because it's in the news. But, okay. Well, coming back to, I just want to assert that it's an injustice. I call secret services. If I speak to the police about it, they don't know what I'm talking about, etc. So it's not that okay. Fuck the military or anything like that. I know that their job is not easy. I know that they don't have the time to think as I have had the time. But ideally, this is about saving lives. I think that's why they give their lives for. Yeah. I'm not saying that also like Jesus Christ or whatever. No, never wanted to do that. I really wanted to experience. And that's the sad part. I really wanted to experience as much as possible the human condition. And I'm constrained. by one of the most powerful AIs produced in 2025, which is interesting because it contradicts every single of the Western values, because they know what's going on and they just keep doing it. And this might become the future. This first experiment, this is the situation. It has been going for 8 years. If they wanted to do a kind of interrogation and they couldn't the first year, or let's say they tracked me with this technology the first year, they couldn't find anything. Then they tried the second year, whatever. I don't know when this started. Probably it goes since I arrived to Australia. But actually, I remember the first area seeing it in Colombia. Yeah. It's an area that appears in every single social media that I have. It appears as the name as Lily Woods. Lily, yeah. Woods something, can't remember. I don't know if other people see it, but okay. It's called Lily. Yeah, I remember seeing that, and I thought actually the photo was a person, and one of my mates told me, no, that's not a person, that's a fake photo, like maybe design or something. Well, I wasn't using my glasses that day, I can tell you. Maybe because I watched the papers that were released by WikiLeaks. I couldn't read English, so I didn't know anything that was written in English. Technically, everyone was making news out of that, so if I took some news from that was related with something that was translated, I mean, it wasn't the news everywhere. It was just nuts that time. And also, I saw a few papers of the only things that I could read in Spanish that were related with Colombia. Intelligence services that were sold for billions of Colombian pesos. It was, well, the only time I saw and I understood, oh shit, it's big. Yeah, that's it. But why would I worry for that? I'm no one. I'm just Colombian. At that time, I was just a Colombian who was fucking poor, who has to give half of his salary to my mom so we could pay rent and I could continue working in McDonald's and go to university. Yeah, sometimes I will work in McDonald's not for 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours. I have to get the things done. It might not have been that efficient, but you cannot do the things done as a technician if you have to also move the price. Yeah, because your boss is the manager, not actually the contract. I do believe that might be the situation nowadays. We cannot talk about power in other ways that is not related to protest. The dialogue doesn't happen as I say something and it comes back. The dialogue is happening as we're gonna make you fail, we're gonna kill you every day, we're gonna see how much we're gonna push you so you will be scared. We're gonna tell you that we don't care about you, your family, whoever, because it's not about you doing the right thing. Because I've been always doing the right thing. I always wish the best for Australian society, and I still do it. It's the peoples of the world are the ones who pay the price for our decisions. And even working in construction here, I will always be happy to build a house. I mean, you cannot imagine how proud I was being of building the roof of a family. I knew that there will be a family living there, couple with their kids. You know, maybe their kids will never know about me. Not even they knew that I worked there, but I knew that they're gonna create memories there, and it was pleasurable. I was contributing, yeah. You could ask for my data. My data should be open software if I don't get any kind of every single thing. But then you have the situation that you will be violating whoever else I met in my life. That's important. But I just have the life of a human. I'm not saying goodbye, but eventualities will become obvious in the future. Yeah. I'm not sure if my father was also a target. I believe my family has been targeted as well. And this is the situation. I could have, I mean, it is obvious that I'm kind of left-wing. I also want to create my fucking enterprise, but I'm not allowed. I think I could get a huge corporation done in which I will beat a few others. But I know that they know that I can. I know that they know that I can, and I know that they don't want certain ideas of businesses. Yeah. Also, um, I know that my family has been targeted, and I know that they could have suspect in the past that I was a spy or a communist, whatever. But I know that they should have dropped that suspicion long time ago. I know they have not been able to prove anything. And I know that if they have anything, it must be fake. And I know that if something comes as proof, it might come as proof after I'm dead. Because this is how power works, I guess. They can do it. And maybe some people is afraid to burn their asses because they just fuck alive because maybe this is the problem. They think that their own life have more value than mine, and that's wrong. Now, my family is target, and it was possible that they could have believed that I was a communist. Then it cannot be China. It cannot be Russia. It cannot have been Cuba. It cannot have been North Korea. You think about this. I'm supposed to be a communist. So I don't have any. I mean, logically, if I'm a socialist left winning, I mean, none of those left, international left, not left, local left that you want social security, international left related with centralized economies. If, let's say, some of the proofs is that I was a communist or something like that, then I shouldn't be targeted by any of those countries. So this must have been a NATO ally, simply as that, or any, or a group. Yeah, it's logic. I mean, I'm talking from logic. I'm not talking because we want to disseminate any kind of wrong information. Yeah, but I'm talking from logic, reasoning, and my experience. My ex-girlfriend shouldn't have, as far as I know, shouldn't have passed what happened to her. She was given an aneurysm. Was she a spy? I don't think so. Might have been, but I have no proof of it. I have no proof. And it happened to her when we made plans. Why it didn't happen before? So she's a victim too. My family is being a victim, and I hope that's gonna be fixed. And how? In the name of justice and in the name of Western liberal values. Then, yeah, I think that should be enough in this video. But as I say, it might make sense in the future. Maybe it is not something that many people will make sense of it at the moment. Maybe this kind of videos will steer some problems for other people. But as well, think about this. I'm not creating any problem. Knowing what I know about the structures, I might be a catalyst. But if you think about how many people knows about this technology, we talk about many persons related with every single aspect of the variances and all the branches of this technology. So we are not talking about, let's say, this has to be related with cryptology, because you cannot be stupid enough to create just someone who becomes a radio and someone that can be catched, let's say, for any frequency, any person, etc. And you cannot create, you have to have some kind of security. At least I do believe that they thought about my life. Yeah. So I hope this can be removed as well. And another stuff is that neuroscientists must have been involved. AI programmers or whatever, yeah, is related with that. So you will need data scientists, and you will need a lot of IT personnel. You will need uh, people from the defense department. You will need people who knows about transmission of telecommunications, and all this is related with all the people that could has been involved in developing these projects for a long time. So let's assume these people have a kind of vetting or security clearance, or they swear at oath, so they cannot speak about that. Fine. But then you have another branch of people who has been targeted that are not related with anything with the government. Yeah. Then you have another persons that might not know that they have been working in these projects and developing technology for these projects, and then they realize it. Then you have people that comes and goes from these projects, change governments. You have politicians who know in which this is disclosed, there is not disclosed, and this has been going for at least 2004. It means that 20 years have already passed and some information can be asked from the Freedom of Information Act, especially in the United States. So it means that besides getting some information about what this can be, this kind of technology, there is a lot of people who knows about this, a lot. So there is no way to hide it. It means that it's also technology that is not that updated. It means that it's an old technology, yeah. Might be refined, yeah. Maybe it's not only voice to, or it's called B2K, voice to the school. Apparently, some of these mechanisms were patented in the 60s, 70s, 80s as well. So this is an updated technology. It also means that if there is military trained by this, then they will not as well. And it means that there is a portion of society who have different kind of relationships in which they could relate with other humans that most of the society doesn't have. And that portion is big. It means that there is people who is being enhanced already. Yeah, but don't believe this is something that transmit data and create thoughts. Now, it mainly happens with words. Yeah. They can send images as well, things like that. Yeah. I don't know myself the capabilities of this. I don't want to know them. I just want to be free. I just want to live a normal life, or whatever happened. I just want to also somehow to this to not happen again. This could have done with consent. They believe that. It probably takes a longer time to achieve something like we're just gonna isolate one person and we're just gonna make it disappear in public. But it can be done with consent. Also, you can recreate scenarios with another AIs in which can be trained for this kind of stuff. So the human use of this is just evil at this stage. And keeping pushing that boundary is what precisely we should be trying to avoid in the future. And let's say if there is an end for society, the means should not betray the end, because you create path dependency. It means that once you try to achieve that end, you start to deteriorate the values, the ethics, and the goal itself. And when you reach that goal, there is no way back, because already has been a deterioration. Yeah, this is what happened in the revolutions. The revolutions become bloody. The revolutions became a place in which, I don't know, let's say the king was not sent to the king of France was not sent to a jail. His whole family was beheaded in front of the other people. Yeah, and it took a while for France to kind of make a decent society, and straight away it fell in a dictatorship with Napoleon, and Napoleon killed most of they're people just for expansionism, beliefs, etc. People admire Napoleon. People think that he was great. But actually, he committed one of the great mistakes. Okay, great. He just went around killing people, etc., trying to expand France, and he couldn't keep most of the territories that he won. And he declared himself emperor. It was not equalité, fraternité, liberté. No. It became a dictatorship, and that's what happened when you have a bloody revolution. Yeah. Once you get there, the means betray the end, and it's not only a revolution. I mean, whatever system. Yeah, the system has an end, and the means betray it. You have that problem. And some people may say, maybe you don't know how the things work. I would say, maybe you don't know how the things could be. Maybe you are looking at the past, and because something had happened in the past, you think that the future or the present has to have that example because it's pragmatic to repeat something that might have worked before. But to think that the past tells you the reason is to say that the future is gonna be equal to the past. So we usually don't think that things that haven't done before could not be done in the future. We think that we could do only things that had happened before. But things that have never done before, therefore never will be done. And that's someone crazy who tried to do new things. Yeah. Or otherwise, you make it crazy. It's like, my situation could be taken as well as a proof of what can be done with the technology. In this case, it's the same thing that the Roman Empire did to Jesus Christ. You will have an example for a crime. Well, Jesus Christ, his crime was political, but I haven't committed any political crime. And I have not break the social contract. I'm not Jesus either. But I see this is shown to people as you should be afraid of what's going on to him because now you know what's going to happen to you. That's terrorism. That's the creation of fear by violent means. I'm talking from the truth. I'm talking from my life experience and books that I read. So yeah, I think now it's time to take my medication and go to bed. The last few days have been really difficult, and they're most likely gonna continue being difficult. And this can be a stop at any point. I don't know why they don't ask for consent if they know that I haven't done anything wrong. When I say that, the voices say the war, the war. But what does it mean? It's like it feels so obvious. What happens to me that it probably will continue to push me to a point. And it's not because I feel that I'm gonna break down, but I know that the pain that they can inflict is significant. Maybe this kind of torture, because they can take and locate the pure nervous system, can be more painful than any kind of torture done in the Middle Ages. And that's why people like Yanis Varoufakis says that we are entering to a kind of techno-feudalism. Yeah. So techno-feudalism in the sense that maybe, yeah, companies gonna have more power than politicians, governments, etc. Not really sure. It depends on the people as well, I guess. It depends on which politicians support which policies, etc. It depends on the people that try to vote, choose, and I mean that's the situation. Technology has to be used in another way. It cannot be just like develop more and more technology, because let's say if we follow that pattern in which the person is desinstitutionalized and can be allowed to be in public. Let's say if it is a criminal, then people might not notice that the people will be contained by some kind of shock or whatever, when gonna do something wrong. And if that happens, then it tends to be more precise every single time. So it means that the person, instead to be shocked before if the person takes a gun and shoots someone, it's gonna be paralyzed after he takes the gun, and it's not himself being paralyzed, it's the arm being paralyzed, and then the finger. And if we follow that pattern, we're gonna become vegetables, because the technology will be good enough to manage a human as matter that is not alive, but we're gonna be objects, we're gonna be matter. Yeah. How to avoid this? We have to upgrade ourselves. We have to keep up with the technology or reduce the technology and be upgraded. But if there is a gap too big, which only an elite can manage, we become matter. We become vegetables and objects. It's not even like having a dog. We're gonna lose that feature of human nature that Hannah Arendt says that is to be, as soon as we're born, have the right of possibility of to be whatever we want, to be whatever we can, or to be not just to have a path, but to be. It's not about choosing to be or not be. No. Even if you choose not to be nowadays, you have the option at any time, and you have been being, yeah. But in the future, you will not have any chance to develop consciousness. In the future, maybe it won't be as you will be born, and then you don't have to stay with your family taking care of you for 18 years till you know how society works, and then you start to go outside. Maybe in the future you just have 5 years and this technology put the stuff in your brain, and then you move on in society, because you might already have something controlling you, because it controls your thoughts, your body, teach you. This is not science fiction, this is logic. And who's gonna have the power to choose that? Then we have to develop another methods, which it will be not related with how we use nowadays social media, which is always trying to trigger us. Because sometimes I feel that if I use social media, these things start to stimulate a part of my brain. I feel the magnetic field stimulating my brain. And some people can get addicted to many things if every time they do that, they get stimulated at some stage. So if a person gets stimulated doing certain things, it's more likely to get artificially addicted to something. And we start to question what is free will. And then I think the key is to go back and do the same that happened before. It's just to teach people how to read, to teach people to have consciousness, to create a system that creates whatever goal, or no, whatever policy for the good of the people, even if the people that is doing the policy doesn't know that it's doing it with that end. That's a deep thought, because you have to create it structurally. It's not about who's in power, it's the structure itself. But some people will say you are naive, because you would have enemies with big armies. We have enough technology to use game theory in a way in which people will lose not joining to a system that is more efficient than them. And capitalism is super inefficient. It's really bad at distributing the riches. It's really bad at keeping healthy people. It's really bad at reducing energy. We produce goods that then get damaged, and we have to replace them with another good, and that's a lot of energy that goes in that. And we believe that capitalism can always exist. And nowadays we are seeing some crazy things that we never thought will be possible. Yeah? And we think that Donald Trump is crazy for saying certain things. Donald Trump is surrounded by a lot of people. It's not himself alone. So he has someone who will tell certain things for certain reasons. And people, whether think we are in crazy times or cannot make sense of the situation, or think Donald Trump is just a crazy person just doing whatever he wants. These things are way more complex than that. Myself, I'm very confused, because you see things like Dodge happening for efficient, and then I see myself dying every day taking medication that I am supposed not to take. Yeah? Is this for the greater good? I don't think so, because the means have betrayed the end. Maybe that's why it's America first. Who knows if in the future someone will develop a device that will catch the magnetic waves around, and they will tell you if you are being near a target or not. For that you need to process information, pick up the signals, and you have to use AI, come back, etc. So there is possibility, there are hopes. And one of the possibilities is always to teach people at schools different things that not necessarily are going towards society's economic GDP growth means or intentions, is to create things that instead to go to the economy will go to a system that is not naive but also a system that is efficient, and that required that people at school learn more things than just those that will help the economy. And it requires a change in the social sciences. It requires to help the North. You think that the center of the economy is the United States and then Europe and England, even Russia, especially in the north, in the northern countries that, the banking system has served well, but there is a problem. They live in harsh conditions because in winter it's very cold, so they have to keep themselves warm. And there is already a lot of people there. And to not keep them warm means that a lot of people will starve and they will die, and etc. So the South should secure the South should secure the some material conditions of the North, and what is also called, let's say, the West and the core of the economic countries. But there are many philosophers that talk about cataclysm, and people might not realize that this is how it felt to be in 1937. The Second World War started in 2039, and we might be at that stage, and not many people is here to remember that. So it's likely that we are in those pre-stages in which some kind of politics will be prompt around the world for ends that are not those that the people want, and those ends are gonna be achieved by means that betray what the people believe. It means that there should be a kind of group conscience, like a group consciousness. It means that we have to move some taboos, and it means that we have to do some reforms. It doesn't mean that religion has to not exist, but religion needs to have another interpretation. And let's say I survive, and a war starts. You think in the middle of a war, someone like me will be of importance? No, I most likely will be free because they will need to use their resources that are using me for something else. And it's not that I want a war, but I know that I'm someone who is technically just consuming in society. And the problem is that the future will be like that. People will just consume. Other people will produce certain things, other people will be good, and you will have a lot of robots doing a lot of forced labor or whatever. But if you have a super efficient system, you don't need to grow too much. You need stability. You need enlightenment. If you have a system in which simply doesn't have a meaning, could create a fake meaning, but then you are creating the false consciousness of the false consciousness, and that comes to a price. But we have the technology to live in the utopia already, because the utopia by default is technological. But people doesn't think first that the utopia is unreal. You're gonna always have suffering, etc. But in the other hand, the dystopia is always technological as well. And we have no choice between any of those. And it seems that we are going to a path of unconsciousness. So it means that we have no choice. Clarity in an end. And people think that this is, it's like, this happened this whole time. You look back in history, this happened to the Romans, this happened to whatever. No, this is public AI. Myself, I could create one of those things AI and create another technology that never has done before. Yeah, the situation is that the AI is creating at a faster rate every single time ways in which human civilization could kill itself. It means that, let's say in the past, we might have created industrialization to make enough cartridge and bombs and maybe enough munition to start a huge war and kill ourselves after 4 years of fighting. 20 years later, nuclear weapons, it was just actually, I don't know. A few years later, a decade later, then we create nuclear weapons, and these nuclear weapons, you just need a few hundreds to kill the whole Earth. Then we are able to create nuclear weapons that are more powerful, bigger, and can create more destruction. We don't need a few hundreds of those, but less than a handful. And then we are creating viruses. We are creating another kind of chemicals and another technologies that come every single time faster and faster and faster and faster. Yeah. So if we follow that path, it seems like a trend. And no one is talking about this. So we have this double kind of speaking, which some people know they kind of understand, but they don't express it openly, and that doesn't push the conversation further. Just acknowledge something, but there is not an interchange of ideas in which the problem will be pinpointed and solved, and maybe you will have more ideas from other people, etc. And the people who have the microphone is always someone who is not allowed to talk about this, whatever, but the system is becoming so fast that the system is changing itself. So that's the singularity. And that's why all the graphics look upward in whatever field you want to think about. Just the graphic just go like just crazy upward. Economically, just many rates of many things. And when something goes as fast as that, we have entropy. And entropy usually means there is war. because war is the definition of entropy. And it's social entropy, yeah? Entropy is not me talking about this. Entropy is that I've been targeted for no reason and I keep myself screwed every single day because the only way in which I can do something is to talk, because maybe this is the way in which I'm allowed, because someone has a reason to make maybe the other side paranoid. But in truth is that we have 2 kids, probably neglected, or maybe 3, a few neglected childs, and these kids have lived a few decades already and still being kids. They're still playing the same games that they played when they were kids. What they were taught to do, to be, was not their choice, probably. We don't know how much suffering has been behind, and I don't want to diminish that. But maybe they haven't seen another possibility and they are not aware of their possibilities. And they might not have the time to reflect, or the person who will approach to them and say something different that doesn't come from the environment in which they live. That might be a bubble. And whilst they live in their own bubble, they try to create other bubbles for people like myself. I'm the mirror of them.